I am Daniel Matthews, a neurosurgeon with more than 30 years of experience in the medical field. My whole life I believed in science, in the principles that explain life and death in a clear, rational manner. I had little faith in the afterlife, in heaven or hell. But everything changed the day I touched the boundary of death. On August 15, 2015, I woke up with a severe headache. The pain was unlike anything I had ever experienced. It pierced through my brain like a burning blade, spreading through my body, making me tremble. Within a few hours, the pain in my back and neck became unbearable. I was drenched in cold sweat, my heart pounded violently, and then everything faded into darkness. I was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. Diagnosis: gram-negative bacterial meningitis, one of the deadliest forms of infection that can kill a person in just a few days. I fell into a deep coma, my brain nearly entirely shut down. But it was in that state that I embarked on an unimaginable journey. I woke up, but not in the hospital. I felt myself drifting in a pitch-black space, dense, like an endless ocean without light. My body seemed non-existent. Only my consciousness floated aimlessly. I could hear distant echoes, whispers in languages I could not comprehend. Fear engulfed me. I did not know who I was, did not remember that I had once been Daniel Matthews. I had no memories, no identity, no human emotions. I simply existed without direction. Suddenly, in that darkness, a streak of light appeared. It was small but radiant, spinning and gradually expanding. Along with the light, a melody resonated, so pure and soothing that it made my soul tremble. That light seemed to be calling me, pulling me out of the darkness. And then I was lifted up. I found myself soaring through a portal of light, passing through layers of shimmering clouds. As I entered this new space, the sight before me took my breath away. A vast valley stretched infinitely, glowing with colors beyond anything I had ever seen on earth. Streams of water flowed gently, reflecting light like diamonds. A soft breeze swept through, carrying a fragrance so pure and celestial that it was unlike anything I had ever known. In front of me, hundreds of people were dancing and laughing joyfully. They did not speak in words, but I could feel their pure joy radiating around me. They wore simple robes, yet they emitted an extraordinary glow. Beside me, riding on a giant butterfly, a woman appeared. She had deep blue eyes and golden, silky hair. She said nothing, but I could understand every word she conveyed to me through her mind. "You are deeply loved. You have nothing to fear." Those words overwhelmed me with emotion. Never before had I felt such pure, unconditional love. Love that required nothing in return. It filled my soul entirely, as if I had finally found a home I had long forgotten. As I was still immersed in this overwhelming sense of peace, another melody arose from the sky. Floating orbs of light danced above, emitting hymns of divine harmony. I realized they were not just lights, they were angels singing of the greatness of the Creator. Suddenly, another door appeared. I was drawn into it and found myself standing before a magnificent throne. Blinding light radiated from it, yet I could not see who was seated upon it. A voice echoed, powerful yet filled with love. "My child, you have wandered in doubt for too long, but even when you did not believe in me, I was always here." I fell to my knees, my heart trembled. I realized that this was the Creator, God, not just a distant entity, but the very source of all existence. His love enveloped me like a warm embrace. I could say nothing but bow in awe and gratitude. He showed me visions of my life, not from my own perspective, but through the eyes of those I had affected. I felt the pain of the patients whose surgeries I had failed, saw the sorrow of those I had unintentionally hurt. But I also saw the moments when I brought life, the patients I had saved, the smiles of gratitude. Every soul has a mission. Yours is not yet complete. I understood then that I had to return. I felt myself falling, descending through the layers of light, back into my body. I opened my eyes. Around me stood my family, tears streaming down their faces. The doctors could not believe it. They had already prepared for the worst. But I had returned with an entirely new awareness. Afterward, it took me months to recover, but my mind was forever changed. I was no longer a skeptic. I knew there was an afterlife, that the Creator truly existed, and that love was the essence of the universe. Now I dedicate the rest of my life to sharing this story, to helping those who doubt understand that death is not the end. It is merely a doorway to something infinitely more wondrous. Final chapter: The Light of Faith. After returning from the afterlife, I could no longer live my life the same way as before. What I had experienced was not just a dream or a hallucination caused by brain damage. I had been there. I had seen it, felt it, more vividly than anything in my earthly existence. In the early days after waking up, I was still weak, but in my mind, every memory of my journey beyond death remained as sharp as if it had just happened yesterday. Strangely, when I tried to share it with my colleagues, some of them simply shook their heads, dismissing it as the effects of brain damage or sedatives. But deep inside, I knew the truth. I had touched eternity. As I began to recover, a series of questions flooded my mind. Why was I allowed to return? What made me different from other patients? Was this all part of God's plan? How could I convey this message to others without being dismissed as delusional? These questions pushed me to seek answers, not only in science, but also in faith. I started reading the Bible, something I had neglected for decades. In the past, I had viewed it merely as an ancient book filled with myths. But this time, as I read, everything came to life in a completely new way. I realized that what I had experienced had been mentioned countless times within its pages. I read about the visions of Prophet Isaiah, the angels seen by Ezekiel, the resurrection of Jesus Christ, and many other accounts that I had previously dismissed as mere allegories. But now, I knew they were real. One of the greatest lessons I learned from my journey was forgiveness. When I saw my life from the perspective of others, I recognized the pain I had caused. One case, in particular, haunted me. A 7-year-old boy named Jacob had a brain tumor and underwent surgery under my care. I did everything I could, but the procedure failed, and the boy did not survive. I vividly remembered the grief in his parents' eyes, and for years afterward, I carried that guilt. After my near-death experience, I sought out Jacob's parents. When I told them how deeply sorry I was, how I had always felt that I had not done enough, Jacob's mother held my hands and said, "Dr. Matthews, we never blamed you. We know Jacob is in a better place, and because of what you did, we had more time with our son. We know that God had his plan." Her words were like a healing balm for my soul. I realized that, even as a doctor, I was never in control of life and death. Only God held that power. Once I had fully recovered, I decided to dedicate the rest of my life to sharing my story. I began writing books, participating in scientific and spiritual discussions, and speaking at medical conferences. I did not try to force anyone to believe what I had experienced, but I wanted people to understand that this world does not end with death. One of the most important truths I discovered was that prayer has real power. When I was on the verge of passing, I had heard the prayers of those who loved me. I realized that prayers were not just empty words. They created real energy, a connection with the spiritual realm. I began encouraging my patients to pray before surgery. I no longer saw it as a mere ritual. I knew it truly had an effect. I did not abandon science after my near-death experience. On the contrary, I continued to study consciousness, exploring the relationship between the brain and the soul. I realized that science and faith are not opposites. They are two sides of the same coin. Science helps us understand the material world, but faith helps us understand our souls and our purpose. I saw this in my own medical practice. Some patients recovered despite having no medical explanation. Some described seeing a light as they neared death. Some experienced miraculous awakenings that could not be explained by biology alone. Science is still too limited to fully explain these mysteries. Now, as I reflect on my journey, I understand that I was given a gift, not to keep for myself, but to share with the world. If you are reading this, perhaps you are a skeptic as I once was. Perhaps you think this is all just imagination. But I want you to know, you are more than just your physical body. You are an eternal soul. Death is not the end. It is merely a doorway. There is a Creator, an infinite love waiting for you. Prayer and faith have real power. Each of us has a purpose in this life. Find it and live it well. I no longer fear death. When my time comes, I know I will return to the light, to the Creator, to the angels who guided me. And I hope that when your time comes, you too will witness the same wonder. Live with love, with compassion, and with faith. Because in the end, love is the only thing that remains.